A city of skyscrapers with almost no people. Imagine driving through a city filled with towering apartment buildings, wide highways, luxury shopping malls, and sparkling streetlights. Yet there's almost nobody around. No traffic jams, no crowds, no children playing outside, just silence. It sounds like something from a post-apocalyptic movie. But these places are real. Across China, there are entire neighborhoods, and in some cases, entire cities, that appear almost completely empty. They're often called ghost cities, and they've fascinated travelers, economists, and urban explorers for years. But here's the surprising part. Many of these cities weren't abandoned after people left. Some were built before people ever arrived. So why would anyone spend billions of dollars constructing massive cities with almost no residents? Is it one of the biggest financial mistakes in history, or part of a much bigger plan? The answer is far more complicated than most people realize. Let's uncover the truth. What exactly is a ghost city? When people hear the phrase ghost city, they often imagine abandoned buildings slowly falling apart. China's ghost cities are different. Most of them are brand new. You'll find modern apartment towers stretching across the skyline, perfectly paved roads, landscaped parks, subway stations, schools, hospitals, and shopping centers. Everything looks ready for millions of people. The only thing missing is the people. Some neighborhoods have occupancy rates so low that thousands of apartments remain dark at night. Parking lots stay empty. Restaurants struggle to attract customers. Entire streets can feel frozen in time. Yet these places were never meant to be abandoned forever. Understanding why means going back several decades. China's historic building boom. Beginning in the late 20th century, China's economy grew at an astonishing pace. Hundreds of millions of people moved from rural villages into expanding cities. Factories multiplied, businesses opened everywhere, and income steadily increased. Urbanization became one of the largest migration movements in human history. Government planners believed this trend would continue for decades. Instead of waiting until cities became overcrowded, officials often decided to build entire new urban districts in advance. The idea sounded reasonable. If millions of new residents were expected in the future, why not prepare today? Developers raced to build apartments, office towers, shopping malls, transportation systems, and public infrastructure all at once. Sometimes, however, the expected population simply didn't arrive as quickly as planned. And that's when the image of the ghost city began spreading across the world. Real estate became more than just housing. Here's where the story becomes even more interesting. In many countries, people buy homes mainly to live in them. In China, real estate also became one of the most popular ways to invest money. Many families purchased apartments not because they planned to move there immediately, but because they believed property values would continue rising over time. Some buyers owned multiple apartments. Others left them completely empty while waiting for prices to increase. As more people invested, developers continued building even more housing projects to meet demand from investors. This created an unusual situation. High apartment sales didn't always mean people were actually moving into those homes. On paper, buildings were sold. In reality, many remained unoccupied. That helped create neighborhoods that looked surprisingly empty despite having many owners. The race between construction and population. One reason ghost cities seem mysterious is timing. Building an entire city isn't like building a single house. Roads, subway systems, schools, power stations, hospitals, and business districts all require years of planning. Chinese officials often chose to complete everything before large populations arrived. From an aerial view, the cities looked finished. On the ground, they could feel strangely quiet. Some international news reports captured these empty streets and presented them as permanent failures. But reality turned out to be more complicated. Several famous ghost cities gradually filled with residents over the following years. Areas that once looked deserted eventually became busy neighborhoods with schools, businesses, and daily traffic. In other words, some ghost cities weren't really failures. They were simply early, when ambition went too far. Of course, not every project succeeded. Some local governments expected much faster economic growth than actually happened. Developers borrowed enormous amounts of money to finance ambitious construction projects. If population growth slowed or demand weakened, selling enough apartments became increasingly difficult. This created financial pressure throughout the property sector. Some unfinished developments sat partially completed. Others struggled to attract businesses. The result wasn't just empty buildings. It also exposed weaknesses in relying too heavily on real estate for economic growth. Suddenly, what looked like endless expansion began raising difficult questions. Could every new city actually find enough residents? Would property prices always rise? And what would happen if confidence disappeared? These questions became increasingly important. Are China's ghost cities really empty today? Here's something many documentaries never mention. Some of the most famous ghost cities aren't ghosts anymore. Take places like Ordos in Inner Mongolia. Years ago, images of its empty streets spread across global media. Today, significantly more people live there than when those viral videos were filmed. Schools have opened. Businesses operate. Traffic has increased. While some districts remain less populated than originally planned, they're far from completely deserted. The same pattern has happened elsewhere. Cities once criticized for being empty slowly gained residents as transportation improved, jobs expanded, and families relocated. This doesn't mean every project succeeded. Some developments still struggle. But the reality is far more balanced than dramatic headlines often suggest. Why build first instead of later? At this point, you might still wonder, why not simply build homes after people arrive? The answer lies in long-term planning. Imagine trying to construct highways, subway systems, hospitals, airports, and millions of apartments after a city has already become overcrowded. Construction would be far more disruptive and expensive. Chinese planners often preferred preparing infrastructure ahead of demand. It's similar to building an airport before passenger numbers explode. If growth arrives as expected, the investment can eventually make sense. If growth slows, the city can appear strangely empty for years. That's the gamble. Sometimes it works remarkably well. Sometimes it doesn't. What the world can learn. China's ghost cities have become more than just an internet curiosity. They're now studied by economists, urban planners, architects, and governments around the world. They raise fascinating questions. How much should cities prepare for future growth? How can housing remain affordable without creating oversupply? What happens when investment becomes more attractive than actually living in homes? And perhaps most importantly, how do governments balance ambition with realistic expectations? Every rapidly developing country faces versions of these same challenges. China simply experienced them on an enormous scale. The surprising truth behind the empty streets. When you first see drone footage of endless apartment towers stretching across the horizon with almost no people in sight, it's easy to believe something went terribly wrong. Empty streets, silent shopping centers, and dark apartment windows create an image that feels almost surreal. But the truth isn't that simple. Some ghost cities represent overly ambitious planning. Others reflect investment-driven housing markets. Some became symbols of financial risks, and many eventually transformed into thriving communities after years of slow population growth. So the next time you hear someone mention China's ghost cities, remember this. Those empty streets don't always tell the whole story. Sometimes they're evidence of economic miscalculations. Sometimes they're snapshots taken before a city's story truly began. And sometimes they're a reminder that building the future is never as predictable as anyone hopes. If you enjoyed uncovering the real story behind China's mysterious ghost cities, make sure to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and let us know which global mystery we should explore next. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into the world's most fascinating places, economies, and hidden stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.